Members of the World Health Organization will meet Monday to discuss the alarming spread of the Zika virus throughout South America. There have been several cases reported in the U.S. as well, people traveling throughout that region, South America specifically. The Zika virus is spread by mosquitoes, with concern aimed at pregnant women, since the virus can lead to birth defects.
The Zika virus is not a new virus, but new cases have been reported in Brazil. Some viruses are transferred from people to people.
This virus happens to be transmitted through the bite of a mosquito.
The Zika virus is similar to other mosquito-transferred illnesses, but each virus has their own symptoms and complications.
It's in the same family of viruses as the West Nile virus, in that, it's a flavivirus. But what makes this a little different than the West Nile virus, and both, by the way, are transmitted by mosquitoes, is that this particular virus causes problems mainly in gestating fetuses and females who are giving birth. In those types of situations, microcephaly, or small head, has been something that has been noted in people who are infected with this virus during that time period.
Although the Zika virus is rare to cause symptoms that require hospitalization, there has been a link to pregnant women and their babies being born with birth defects.
But by and large, the virus is innocuous, and it doesn't cause fatalities. And I think that's the most important piece of the information.
There is no vaccine to prevent the Zika virus from spreading, so pregnant women should be careful when outside, and everyone should use a mosquito repellent according to the CDC.
This segment is our friend, physics professor Jose Lopez from Seton Hall University. Also sticking around is wealth management specialist Jim McCarthy. And via Skype, Dr. Amesh Adalja, who specializes in infectious disease research at the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center. We'll start with the doctor. Doctor, what exactly is the Zika virus, and why all of a sudden should we be concerned about this?
The Zika virus is something that's been around for quite a while. It actually was discovered in the 1940s and has really been kind of a travel medicine oddity since that time. But starting about 8 or so years ago, we started to see larger outbreaks. And what happened now is we've got this massive outbreak in South America, primarily centered on Brazil. And in the past, this virus has really been considered minor, something that's self-limited. The majority of people don't even have any symptoms. But we're seeing an association with what's called microcephaly, or fetuses that are born with abnormally small heads. And that is a devastating diagnosis, and that's the concern, that this mosquito-borne illness may be more severe than we had initially thought.
All right, doctor, let me hold you there. We're going to work on your audio. We're going to go to Jose Lopez. This, again, came out of nowhere. It's got to be a concern for many people, but from what I understand, the mosquito in the United States is not the one that carries this.
No, it's a different type of mosquito that is found mostly in this part of the world, in South America.
Right.
What has exacerbated and caused it to grow is the El Nino weather pattern it's been very dry in that part of the world. And in this part of the world, especially in that part of Brazil, there's a lot of poverty. So there's a lot of water collection that happens from rainwater when it does rain there. And the still water is basically a breeding ground that's allowed this type of mosquito to really take off. And it's been moving around the population there as it's an epidemic at this moment.
We also have to be concerned because the Olympics is going to be in Brazil this year.
Well, it seems to be that some of it might have come from the World Cup in 2014, that the Zika virus started to move in from Central Africa through South America and it's gotten there. And then they're saying there was an international boat race, canoe race there that was happening there last year. And now the fear is in 2016 we have the Summer Olympics in Rio.
Right.
So this is a potential problem. We have people from all over the world.
Now, Jim, there is no Wall Street, just Wall Street. We deal with countries all around the world. I'm sure maybe even some of your clients have investments in South America. They must be concerned about this because it could easily become bigger than it is.
Sure. I think the main difference, the thing that concerns me from an investment point of view, where I think there's more impact, is more of the contagious sort of like an Ebola. When that happened in 2014, there was a much bigger potential financial impact, not only direct but indirect costs. Indirect costs are basically, well, obviously the most direct cost is loss of lives and the pain and suffering for families, but the indirect costs of lost wages, the impact on the travel trade, for example. Some of these, like dengue is a virus that we've had here in the U.S. There's been a couple of outbreaks. I think there was one in 2009 in Florida. They estimated the financial impact of that, both direct and indirect, was about $2.1 billion.
Well, you have savvy clients. They must be bringing this up to you, or if they haven't already.
I have, interestingly enough, I wouldn't call them the savvy clients. A lot of my retired clients are travelers, and so they clearly are bringing the question up. And as the doctor said, it's it's sort of a travel-related sort of thing. If you're traveling, can you get the appropriate vaccinations?
Right.
Well, there is no vaccination
and
for
in this
it.
case, there's no vaccination, so it's a significant issue or a potential issue. But and obviously they're worried about it coming here and what the impact might be.
And there are some cases of people who traveled in now in the New York metropolitan area at least and have it.
Yes.
So let's go back to the doctor for a moment. Doctor, should we, besides pregnant women, and that's all really we've been hearing, should the general public be concerned in any way with regard to being stung by a mosquito that has the Zika virus?
Not really. This is really a minor illness for everybody other than a developing fetus. So most people, if they do even experience symptoms, it lasts about a week, and it's fever, muscle aches and pains, and maybe a rash, and then it goes away. And it doesn't really cause complications in those individuals who aren't pregnant. It's really so far restricted to these pregnant women whose babies may be exquisitely sensitive to this virus.
Well, let's discuss the pharmaceutical industry. We have heard again and again that they do not like to tackle diseases where the end result is they're not making enough money on their bottom line. I know that sounds crude, but a lot of diseases are out there that are just not addressed because there's not a big revenue intake should they find a vaccination for it. Is that the case with this? Has it been ignored too long?
It really wasn't something that even was on the radar because, like I said, it wasn't considered a major public health threat, so people wouldn't really think about even developing a vaccine or an antiviral medication against it. However, this outbreak has really changed things with over 500,000 cases at least in Brazil. This really is going to be seen as a market opportunity, and that's why you're seeing companies like GlaxoSmithKline and Sanofi and other companies starting to look at their vaccine pipeline and see if they can reconfigure certain existing vaccines or develop vaccines for this. Certainly there are neglected diseases, we call them the neglected tropical diseases, where there isn't a major market, so a lot of companies haven't invested in vaccines and medications against them, but I think that Zika is really going to be reconceptualized after this outbreak.
Is it too crude to say that if it's not making money, they're just not going to take care of it? And you say this might change the equation. Do you truly believe that? Maybe they will tackle some of these smaller ailments that they can maybe not make a profit on, but just do it for the good of humankind?
There's always going to be a problem with small population diseases, whether they're infections or any other genetic disease. However, Zika is now becoming a travel-related illness, and there's going to be a market for people wanting the vaccine when they travel, and that's a way for companies to recoup their investment and make a profit on their investment, just like we've seen with the dengue vaccine that Sanofi has recently released. It's primarily geared at travelers to those areas.
Professor Lopez, we have seen that when the world puts its mind to something, it can cure a problem. Ebola is an example that ravaged Africa for several months before the pharmaceutical companies got around to it. Is it difficult to find a vaccination for this?
I mean, it is. Vaccinations are not very easy to come about. I mean, you have to inoculate people. There's a lot of testing that goes involved. But I would say the solution to this particular problem is not even vaccinations at this stage. It's insect repellent.
Right.
It's netting. It's wearing long sleeve shirts and long pants. It's very, very simple solutions at this stage that can be used. I mean, neighboring countries to Brazil, Argentina, Chile, have started to just fumigate with insect repellent to kill these mosquitoes. Mm-hmm. And that's the solution. I mean, we've had the West Nile virus in this part of the country throughout the United States, very similar sort of virus, sort of in that family. And the solution we've come up with has been killing mosquitoes, you know, and we've known this for about 100 years of how to kill mosquitoes.
You just get rid of the standing water.
Exactly.
You mentioned the travel industry. Would they put enough pressure on pharmaceutical companies and so on if they start losing money on some of these international flights to South America?
You would assume one CEO is calling another CEO, you bet, for sure. Because that's their lifeblood, and it's not only the it's the airlines for sure. It's the cruise ships, it's the hotel chains because many hotels have.
So they will put pressure on the powers that be to make sure they clear this up, because if they start losing money, and I hate to say it, but we're back to the bottom line.
We're always back to the bottom line.
You're right, we're always back to the... Doctor, we're going to give you the last word here. How long would it take to create a vaccination or vaccine for this?
Traditionally, vaccines take almost a decade to manufacture. However, there are a couple that I mentioned earlier, the dengue fever vaccine, and there's also a West Nile virus vaccine, both in the same family, that there are some ideas about maybe switching out some of the components to try and get a vaccine quicker. So there are some reports about trials starting earlier, but in general, it's a matter of years. And like your other guest said, the solution here is to really attack the source, the mosquitoes. We know how to do mosquito control. That's what needs to be stepped up in these countries to prevent this infection from spreading.
All right, Dr. Amesh Adalja, we thank you very much for your time today. Jim McCarthy as well for joining us, and of course, our friend Jose Lopez. When we come back, dealing with hate speech, specifically in the workplace. We'll be right back.